Until my death, I finally understood that a forced melon truly isn't sweet. So I returned to my senior year of high school. This year, I studied like my life depended on it. Even though Yang Na and I were in the same class, I didn't spare her a single glance. And Yang Na didn't find it strange. She assumed I was working hard to get into the same university as her. On the last practice exam, I scored in the top 10 in the entire grade. This meant I had one foot firmly planted in the doorway of Qingbei University, my dream school. That evening, after school, Yang Na, after seeing my scores, confidently filled out an application for Kangda University for me. She stopped me as I was leaving. I adjusted my backpack strap, preparing to walk around her. She simply handed me the papers. A Kangda application with your current scores is just good enough, Yang Na said, standing in front of me. Somewhat bewildered, I took what she offered, and she left. I looked down at the papers. She had filled out everything. This mirrored my previous life. Whenever I felt discouraged by her lack of response, she would dangle a carrot like this, enticing me to continue jumping through hoops for her. It had been almost half a year since I'd interacted with her. Yet the gears of fate were turning in the same direction. But Yang Na, I'm not going to Kangda. I tore the application into pieces, a small smile playing on my lips. After the college entrance exam, I nestled on the sofa with a bag of chips, glued to the TV. Li Huawang, are your application results out yet? My parents seemed even more anxious than I was. The moment they got home, they started asking about my sister Li Xia's programming project, which had qualified for an international competition. Since she didn't have to take the college entrance exam, my parents' attention was entirely focused on me. Not yet. The websites crashed. I'll check later. I was the least worried person in the house. Lying on the sofa, laughing and crying along with the TV show, my parents changed into their home clothes and sat beside me, looking like they had something to say. I quickly sat up and lowered the volume. "What's up?" I asked, looking at them exchanging glances. I suddenly remembered that around this time in my past life, they also seemed to be sighing a lot. Dad had even started smoking those 10-day fragrance cigarettes again. In my past life, I was too busy preparing for Kangda to notice anything unusual about my parents. Is there something wrong with the company? I thought that was the only possible explanation. Huawang. Dad seemed hesitant. Is there a student named Yang in your class? The daughter of Hao Yin Group? Why are you telling the child this? Mom patted Dad's back, as if to stop him from saying anything more. I grew serious. High society was strictly stratified. Although we all attended the same school, students with backgrounds like Li Jia's, a small smart home company, were a dime a dozen among the international students. But the Yang family was different. They were at the top of the pyramid. Everyone addressed Yang Na respectfully as Miss Yang, for a reason. Yang Na? Does our family have some collaboration with the Yang family? Nothing. Don't listen to your dad's nonsense. Didn't you have plans with Xiaoquan this afternoon? Go on. If you need more money, Mom will transfer some to you. Mom tugged at Dad's sleeve and ushered me upstairs. I was puzzled but went back to my room. I had deleted everything related to Yang Na on my phone the day the college entrance exam ended. So what was going on? How could Li Jia, a small company, have anything to do with the Yang family? Suddenly, a ringtone startled me. Bro! Kai Xiaoquan was almost crying. I just ran into Yang Na and her crew at the mall. I'm surrounded. Where are you? His voice sounded strange. I assumed it was because I was running late. I'm on my way. 10 minutes. I grabbed my bag and rushed downstairs, overhearing my parents' conversation. Why did you tell Huawang about this? He finally moved on from that young girl. He's been studying so hard and is much more mature now. Besides, he's still a child. What can he do about the company's problems? But we haven't been able to collect the payment. The capital chain is about to break. If we don't win the Li Shi hotel bid. Dad sighed, worried. I knew he had quit smoking a long time ago. I quietly retreated. So, Li Jia's problems had started this early. Yet, my parents still sent me abroad for school in my past life. My phone rang again. This time, it was a familiar female voice. Li Huawang. How long are you going to avoid me? After the college entrance exam, Yang Na couldn't reach me. I wasn't on the international class roster for senior year. For half a month, my phone was unreachable, messages undeliverable. It wasn't just her. I had blocked everyone around her. Finally hearing my voice, her grip on the phone tightened. Without waiting for a response, her voice choked with emotion. Li Huawang, are you breaking up with me? Still silence from my end. When had it started? That basketball game in the first semester of senior year. He thought I was just throwing a tantrum. He stubbornly waited for me to coax him. But what he got was me growing closer to Li Xia. He should have known I was done with him when I didn't reply to his messages for the entire winter break. But then, on New Year's Eve, he received my gift. He wore it happily, never taking it off. But I didn't even look at him. He consoled himself with the thought that I was busy studying. Kangda University? He had already decided on that in his first year of high school. He knew everything. He knew I had applied but still chose to stay in the country. For years. Even if he could fly back and forth constantly, we would still be thousands of miles apart. He wanted to question me, but he couldn't reach me anymore. This time, he couldn't fool himself. I was breaking up with him. Na Jie, the university acceptance list is out. Li Huowang got into Qingbei Law School. Qingbei. Li Xia had received her acceptance letter a year ago, so my hard work wasn't for him. Yang Na's hand trembled. She looked back at Lu Xing dazed. Tears welled up in her eyes. It was only then that everyone heard the clear, carefree voice of the boy on the other end of the phone. Yang Na, I wish you all the best. A future without me. The line went dead. As my friend, Kai Xiaoquan had always felt sorry for my unrequited love for Yang Na. He had even fantasized, after reading too many novels, about this woman crawling back to me someday. But when this day actually arrived, and this stunning, privileged woman was trembling as she redialed my number, tears silently streaming down her face in front of so many people, even Kai Xiaoquan couldn't bear to watch. If only you had known this earlier, he muttered. Yang Na frantically redialed, but all she got was the cold, automated voice message. Still, she persisted, clinging to the last straw of hope. No matter how Lu Xing and the others tried to persuade her, she ignored them. Yang Na simply didn't understand what I meant. What did never forget mean? In that dark cave, he had sworn he wouldn't leave her. He had sworn. Kai Xiaoquan's phone finally died. The dark screen reflected her face. He saw the person in the reflection, eyes red and swollen, her expression desolate. He was wrong. The one who couldn't let go was her. Perhaps he had known all along that he was the one more invested. That's why he tested me again and again. He just wanted me to care a little more. Not because of my looks, not because of some ridiculous notion of wanting what he couldn't have. What do? I don't want him anymore, Jie. When did you get back? The moment I hung up, I turned off my phone. Turning around, I saw the person who was supposed to be on the other side of the ocean standing behind me. When did you get back? He knew I had been working day and night on my application, so he pushed himself, finishing his programming optimization a week early. He was afraid I would leave again, so he took the last flight back last night. The first thing he saw upon arriving home was me answering that call. He didn't dare make a sound, barely breathing, until the call ended. Congratulations, Huowang, on getting into Qingbei Law School. His eyes were stormy, but he just gave me a small smile and opened his arms. I, seemingly oblivious to his hidden feelings, rushed into his embrace. His slender fingers gently stroked my hair. Li Xia was the daughter of the Li family, my sister in name. In my past life, our parents died in a fire. Li Jia, without me, became the laughingstock of the city. It was Li Xia who took care of me, and I, preoccupied with chasing Yang Na, never noticed her feelings for me. I brought gifts for Huowang. Come downstairs and see. I looked up, somewhat at a loss for words, and told him about my parents acting strangely earlier. Jie, it seems like something's wrong with the company. What should we do? What about Mom and Dad? Li Xia's eyes flickered, but she looked away. I found out a few days ago. It's nothing. I'll handle it. A state-owned company has offered a high price to buy the data we have. It's more than enough to cover Li Jia's current losses. I trusted Li Xia unconditionally. I knew that if she said it was fine, it would be fine. Relieved, I smiled brightly, no longer feeling guilty about not asking Yang Na for help. Jie, you're here. I happily pulled Li Xia's arm and went downstairs. The living room was piled high with shopping bags. My parents had some too. Perhaps Li Xia had already told them something, as I no longer saw the worry on their faces. Huowang, come and see. These are all from your sister. Mom's smile was loving and gentle. She playfully tugged at Dad's sleeve, feigning jealousy. Look how biased our daughter is now. I unwrapped the gifts one by one, growing more and more surprised. Jie, did you rob a bank? As long as Huowang likes them. Li Xia smiled faintly. Later, I was showing off my new clothes to Mom, snuggling beside her. The outfit was similar to the one I had ruined years ago. He had commissioned a world-renowned designer to tailor-make it for me, spending almost all of his competition prize money on it. But I didn't know any of this. He tucked a strand of hair behind his ear, his eyes downcast, concealing his love. Let's go out to dinner tonight to celebrate Huawang getting into his dream university and Xia's success in the international competition. Dad emerged from his study, patting Li Xia's shoulder and laughing heartily. He was completely different from the serious man from earlier. A red Ferrari parked in front of the Li residence. A person leaned against the car. The streetlights illuminated their mixed-race features, making them look like they had stepped out of a comic book. Seeing the Li family's car, the person ran over and blocked it. Huawang, can we talk? I watched as the person desperately knocked on the window. I had never seen Yang Na like this before. Just like me, when she had almost driven me insane in my past life. Eyes red-rimmed, pleading. I was stunned. My parents and Li Xia were all looking at me. The security in this gated community was extremely tight, but this land belonged to the Yang family. Mom, Dad, Jie, you go in first. I sighed and opened the car door. Yang Na was stubborn. 10 years of love, 2 years of sharing a bed. No one understood her better than I did. But the moment I stepped out of the car, I missed the sight of the person beside me biting their lip, their head bowed. Talk, but come home early. Auntie will warm some milk for you. Mom didn't say much. After all, they had witnessed my feelings for Miss Yang. The black car pulled into the garage. The lights in the villa came on. I turned to Yang Na. She stared at me, her brows slightly furrowed, the corners of her eyes red, as if tears were about to fall. She cautiously approached me, seemingly murmuring something. As she got closer, I heard her repeating, "I'm sorry," but I only felt a pang of irony. Seeing my indifference, she panicked. She reached out to grab me, but I stepped back, avoiding her touch. Miss Yang, if you have something to say, just say it. Yang Na looked at me in disbelief, her fingers digging into her palms. She thought I was just angry with her. She just needed to apologize, coax me, and I wouldn't have the heart to leave her. Huawang. Her voice was choked with sobs. There's nothing between me and Meng Hao anymore. I know I was wrong. I won't deliberately make you jealous or upset anymore. Do you want to go to Qingbei? I'll go with you, okay? I'll listen to everything you say from now on. Don't treat me like this. I looked at her with the indifference of a stranger. Yang Na felt a surge of fear, as if she had lost something irretrievable. She desperately pulled me into a tight embrace, finding a sliver of comfort. Yang Na's life was saved by Li Huawang. So Yang Na belonged to Li Huawang. Huawang, I'm yours. You said. You swore. You wouldn't leave me. In the small, dark cave, the little boy, covered in wounds, held the unconscious little girl, talking incessantly. When the little girl didn't respond, the little boy burst into tears, sobbing uncontrollably. You can't die. I saved your life. You're mine. I won't let you die. The little girl remained unresponsive, blood still flowing from her wounds. The little boy swore to the little girl that he would never leave her, then turned and disappeared into the night. That year, 10-year-old me wandered through the wilderness for a long time, searching for someone to save the little girl. There were wild animal howls and the insects I feared most. But to save her, I was afraid of nothing. But in the end, I collapsed from blood loss and exhaustion. When I woke up, I was in the hospital. Mom, Dad, and Jie were anxiously watching over me. The first thing I did upon waking was ask them to save the little girl still in the cave. That's when I found out that the little girl had already been rescued. My body stiffened. I stared blankly ahead. So he knew everything. He knew everything, yet he still chose to hurt me repeatedly, to slander me so cruelly. And I, foolishly, kept my promise, only daring to break my vow in death. I laughed ironically, tears streaming down my face uncontrollably. I thought he didn't know anything. That's why he so recklessly consumed my love. Turned out I had overestimated myself. Scenes from my past life flashed through my mind. I had no self-respect in front of him. I was at his beck and call, saving money to buy him the most expensive gifts. I watched his ambiguous interactions with Meng Hao and pretended not to care. I took care of him, learned to cook and clean for him. He was my priority in everything. Everyone around Yang Na looked down on me. Even in bed, I had no right to refuse. I lived like a joke. Get out, I whispered. But Yang Na heard me clearly. In that moment, her breath hitched. With a weak, pleading smile, she looked at me, bewildered. Huawang, what are you saying? I don't understand. I said get out, Yang Na. I don't want to see you. Not even for a second. I broke free from her embrace. Turning around, I saw a dark figure at the second-floor window. Li Xia. Why did she look so sad? Yang Na seemed to be saying something behind me, but I couldn't hear a word. My mind was filled with the image of my sister. Yang Na, I advise you to shut up and leave. Don't make me hate you. Finally, silence. When I opened the door to my room, Mom and Dad were still sitting on the sofa in the living room, their faces etched with worry. I suddenly remembered that I had been crying too. There must have been traces on my face. Has Miss Yang left? Are you all right? Mom asked tentatively. After all, I was still young. She was afraid I couldn't handle the heartbreak. I forced a smile. It's okay, Mom and Dad. Your son has leveled up. I'm no longer the 1.0 trial version. You can still joke around. It seems like you're really okay. Mom breathed a sigh of relief. All right, we're going back to our room. Auntie warmed milk for you. Remember to drink it. After my parents went back to their room, I hurried upstairs, but not to my own room. I knocked on another door. The door opened from the inside. Only a single lamp illuminated the large room. Li Xia looked down, her expression unreadable. Her usually gentle voice was cold. Is something the matter? Yes, something big. Li Xia had never spoken to me so coldly before. I licked my lips at a loss. Did I do something wrong? Did I upset you, Jie? I put on a deliberately ingratiating smile, even though the tear stains on my face hadn't faded yet. Li Xia sighed almost inaudibly. She reached out and touched the corner of my eye. Huang, you did nothing wrong. It's my problem. It was her problem. She was just my sister. What right did she have to be jealous of the person who could hold me in their arms? What right did she have to be sad? What are you talking about? Xia is still my best sister. I breathed a sigh of relief and smiled brightly, throwing myself into her arms. Best sister. The bitter echo lingered. Night fell. A serious car accident occurred 4 kilometers outside the Jinshi Ocean Villa district. A red Ferrari, speeding, crashed into the guardrail. I was sound asleep when the news reported this. Meanwhile, Jinshi Hospital was surrounded by reporters. The only heir of the Yang family was critically injured in a car accident. This was tomorrow's headline news. Outside the operating room, Yang Mu stared intently at the red, in surgery sign. Yang Fu rushed back from Anghua as soon as he received the news. Meng Hao, Chun Yi Lu Xing, and others also waited outside the operating room, silent and grim. I said, get out, Yang Na. I don't want to see you, not even for a second. Yang Na, I advise you to shut up and leave. Don't make me hate you. Yang Na, I wish you all the best. A future without me. Why did I reject her? She had never listened to me before, repeatedly draining my love for her. This time, she was obedient. She gave me back my life, leaving me far behind. So, could she please not abandon him? Not leave him? The patient's heart rate and blood pressure are dropping rapidly. Defibrillator ready. Beep. The operating room door opened. Yang Mu, supported by Meng Hao, walked over. How is my daughter? She's out of immediate danger, but whether she wakes up depends on her own will. She had suffered a severe head injury, and the steel bar of the guardrail had pierced her chest. There were rarely cars on that road at that time. Surveillance footage showed Yang Na speeding until she crashed into the guardrail. When the traffic police arrived, the hospital immediately provided the blood test results. No alcohol, no illegal substances. She had attempted suicide. Yang Mu trembled. The formidable businesswoman seemed to have aged 10 years in an instant. Lu Xing, you've always been close to Yang Na. Tell me, where did she go tonight? All eyes fell on Lu Xing. I'm afraid she went to see Li Huang. In fact, Lu Xing had noticed something was off with Yang Na at the mall that afternoon. That evening, Yang Na insisted on going to the Li residence. Lu Xing had tried to stop her. Wang Ge, did you see the news this morning? I had dozens of missed calls when I woke up. Before I could check them, Kai Xiaoquan called. What news? I haven't even gotten out of bed yet. I rolled over and casually put the call on speakerphone, opening the news app. Yang Group's only daughter critically injured in car accident. Fate uncertain. What? I froze. Kai Xiaoquan continued talking, but my ears were ringing. I couldn't hear anything. This never happened in my past life. Wasn't Yang Na always fine? Huang, come downstairs. We have guests. Mom's voice floated up from downstairs. Auntie also knocked gently on my door. I collected myself. The Li family villa wasn't large, but the living room was now full of people. Among them, the woman who exuded elegance was none other than Yang Na's mother, the honorary director of Yang Group. Her sharp eyes fixed on me. Mr. Li, if it's convenient, Could I have a word with you? The hospital corridor reeked of disinfectant. I hated the smell. In my past life, I often lay alone in hospital beds, praying for a sliver of hope. Lung cancer was a painful disease. I opened the ward door. The person inside was covered in tubes, the vital signs monitor beeping rhythmically. Yangna, what could I say to her? I pulled up a chair and sat beside the bed, looking at the person who looked so frail. I never wanted her to repay me with her life. My death was a predetermined outcome. My love was a consequence of that fate. I was so tired. I was so tired of loving Yangna. I sighed softly, looking at her closed eyes. Yangna, do you want to hear a story? After this story is over, we both need to live well. The sunlight outside gradually turned a dusky yellow. As the moon rose, the monitor shrieked. Doctors and nurses rushed in. In an unnoticed corner, a figure quietly slipped away. The hospital was still bustling at night. The evening breeze was cool. Suddenly, a jacket was draped over my shoulders. Turning around, I saw Li Xia standing behind me. Jie, why are you here? I was surprised. There was always a lingering sadness in Li Xia's eyes that I couldn't understand. Let's go home. She still didn't explain anything. Her warm hand held mine tightly, leading me home. The summer night was filled with the chirping of cicadas and the calls of birds. The air was fragrant with the scent of damp grass and trees. I looked at the silent back of the person a step ahead of me, a sudden understanding dawning on me. If my death was inevitable, then I would cherish everything I should cherish in my limited time. Like Li Xia, who always appeared within my reach. Doctor, the patient seems to be crying. This is a good sign. At least sadness means she still has something to hold on to. I heard from Kai Xiaoquan that the Yang family had taken Yang Na to the United States for treatment. Yang Na woke up after I left that night. It was her who suggested going abroad. For the entire summer, I barely saw Li Xia at home. Dad said she was busy with her new studio. How busy could she be? Every time I messaged her, she used to reply instantly. Now, it took a long time for her to send back a few words. Huang, stop sighing. You'll see Jie at school. University life began in a blur. The gates of Qingbei University were magnificent. The freshman registration area was crowded, but I spotted the woman in the crowd immediately. Jie! I called out from the car, eager to greet Li Xia. She looked over. After just one summer, Li Xia seemed more composed, her aura even colder. I didn't like it. The aloofness around Li Xia felt like an inexplicable sadness. I opened the car door and ran towards her, grabbing her arm and smiling brightly. Li Xia let me hold her, but her gaze drifted past me to my parents. The Li siblings, though not blood-related, were a striking pair. The sister, cold and beautiful, with a noble air, and the brother, bright and sunny, radiating vitality. Just standing together, they attracted attention. I heard people whispering about the person in front of me. That's Li Xia. I heard she got accepted to Qingbei in her sophomore year. She won the international programming competition before summer break. The data model she sold. The speaker raised both hands dramatically. Help! Am I the only one who thinks she's gorgeous? She's so cool and beautiful. And she's in the supercomputing club. Everyone in the Qingbei supercomputing club has an IQ of 160. I had always known Li Xia was brilliant, but seeing so many people admire her didn't make me happy. I figured it was because, compared to her and my parents, I was too ordinary. I even had to work so hard just to get into Qingbei. My grip on her sleeve loosened. I lowered my head, unaware of her disappointment. I still don't like being close to her in crowds. Alright, since Jie is here, we'll head back to the company. Xia, remember to take good care of your brother. Mom and Dad got back in the car. My luggage was already in the dorm, so it was just Li Xia and me. Jie, you're busy. I'll go back to my dorm. Wait, Li Xia called softly, handing me a key. The apartment across from the school. I'm afraid you won't be comfortable in the dorm. No need. I quickly refused. The studio must have cost a lot of money in the early stages. Li Jia couldn't help much now. I'm not that picky. Living in the dorm will help me make new friends. The outstretched hand slowly retracted. The key clutched tightly in her palm. Then I'll go first. Bye, Jie. My smile was still bright, but she sensed the difference from before. Had he done something wrong? She didn't dare get too close, yet she was afraid of being too far away. University life was tedious, especially for someone like me who relied on hard work rather than talent. My days were spent shuttling between the classroom, the library, and the dorm. Legal provisions, legal principles, case studies. The books I memorized in 2 years could fill 2 of me. My phone vibrated on the table. It was an unknown number. Hello, is this Li Huang? Could you come to the hospital? Your sister is sick. Zuyen had never seen siblings like the Lis. The sister never told her brother about her troubles, but she meticulously prepared gifts for him for every holiday and even weekends, always prioritizing him. But whenever the brother wanted to care for the sister, Li Xia would withdraw, keeping her distance. It was awkward no matter how you looked at it. I rushed to the hospital, still clutching the books I hadn't had time to put in my bag. Li Xia kept me well hidden. Even Zuyen, who was always by her side, had never met me. Are you Xia's brother? I called you earlier. In the ward, my usually invincible sister lay asleep on the bed, her face pale, and 4 drip attached to her right hand. There was an urgent delivery for the studio last night. Xia drank quite a bit for this project. She was unconscious when I found her in the apartment this morning. She really shoulders everything herself. Zuyen sighed. Thank you. I'll be going then. I nodded obediently. Zuyen saw me to the elevator. Back in the ward, Li Xia was awake, but she frowned slightly when she saw me. Why are you here? Go back. Don't you have class this afternoon? Her voice was weak, but her tone was full of resistance. I ignored her, picking up an apple from the bedside table and peeling it. It's a general studies class. I've already asked for leave. If you tell me to leave again, I'll return everything you bought me. She stopped talking, but her brows furrowed. I put a finger between her brows, my voice slightly annoyed. I told you not to frown. If I ever find out from someone else that you're not taking care of yourself, I'll tell Mom and Dad that you're bullying me. Li Xia wanted to say something, but I stuffed the peeled apple into her mouth. I stared at her and held out my hand. Give me the apartment key. Li Xia thought I didn't want to live in the apartment she bought for me, but she didn't ask. She rummaged through her clothes beside her. Your apartment key, I repeated. She froze, then prevaricated. I clearly wasn't buying it. The electronic locks code is my birthday. There's a room in the apartment full of my pictures. How could she let me find out? Li Xia's expression shifted. I narrowed my eyes, staring at her intently. Jia, don't tell me. Li Xia stiffened, avoiding my gaze. Don't tell me you're hiding a man at home and are afraid I'll find out? She almost choked on the apple. I wasn't in a good mood. I had rejected so many boys who asked me to pass love letters and gifts to Li Xia over the past 2 years. Could she really be keeping someone's things? The siblings sat there, harboring their own secrets. The 4-bag was almost empty. I pressed the nurse call button, deciding to let Li Xia off the hook for now. The patient can go home now. Pay attention to your diet, eat light, and don't drink alcohol. You're only in your early 20s, and your stomach is already a mess. The doctor gave serious instructions, muttering a few more words before leaving. Young people these days really don't take care of themselves. Doctor, wait! I glared at Li Xia, grabbed a pen and paper, and chased after the doctor. I meticulously noted down the doctor's instructions and even asked about stomach-soothing methods, writing everything down. When I returned, Li Xia had changed her clothes and was sitting obediently on the bed, waiting for me. Let's go home. I slung my backpack over my shoulder, took her laptop bag from her, and gently held her hand. Her hand, still cool from the 4, gradually warmed against mine. We passed the nurses' station and took the elevator down. The nurses who had witnessed everything started gossiping. Are they a couple? So sweet. Takes me back to my youth. Don't get any ideas. The young man said they're siblings. Seriously? I totally thought. I was dropped off back at school. Li Xia opened the car door for me. My face was grim. She carefully chose her words. I still have some work to do at the studio, but I clearly didn't believe her excuse. I got out of the car and stuffed the note I had written into her hands, pursing my lips and walking away. Wasn't it just something or someone at home that I couldn't know about? I wasn't going to bother with it anymore. Let her boyfriend take care of her. Li Xia sighed helplessly. She was always timid when it came to me. Li Xia, a surprised male voice called from behind. Zuyen told me your studio won the Rongshe project bid. Congratulations. My rarely seen roommate was in the same club as Li Xia. Li Xia nodded politely and drove away. Wow, she's such a big shot. And so cold. You actually know her? The boys around Yue crowded around him, their faces full of envy. More than just know her. He had known of her existence since a physics competition in his senior year of high school, when she had just returned to the country. Perhaps only a girl like Li Xia could make him harbor such a secret crush. It's getting late. Let's go back to the lab. Yue didn't elaborate. He knew Li Xia didn't like people gossiping about her. When I returned to the dorm, I saw me, the one who practically lived in the library, slumped over the table, looking dazed. Huo Wang, didn't you go to the hospital from the library? I asked for leave for you. I just saw your sister with Yue. Is she okay? Yue. I finally reacted. I wasn't surprised. After all, Yue was really impressive. He was one of the few people I thought was worthy of my sister. I'm going to the library. Don't forget the exam the day after tomorrow. Chang Nuo suddenly jumped up from his chair, ignoring my strange expression. Take me, study God. Perhaps because of my rebirth, everything had changed. In my junior year, I went home almost every chance I got. The fire I had tried to avoid never happened. However, I heard from my parents that Li Xia's biological father had found her. It seemed a lot had happened at home while I was abroad in my past life that I didn't know about. Li Xia wasn't an orphan. Since I learned that Li Xia had a boyfriend, I basically cut off contact with her. If I didn't message her, we wouldn't have much interaction. Her studio grew bigger and bigger, eventually becoming a large-scale company. Her accolades were everywhere on campus. The name Li Xia became legendary. In the year she graduated at 22, Li Xia was recognized by her biological father, an internationally renowned mathematician. This news once again shook the city. Everyone seemed to realize then that Li Xia and I weren't blood-related. My parents and she carefully tested my reaction, but what reaction could I have? It was her decision to leave the Li family. Because of her, Li Jia had overcome crisis after crisis. I should be grateful. Could I force her to stay? Having died once, I understood better than anyone that forcing things never ended well. On the day Li Jia and Zhou Jia held a ceremony for her, I dragged my suitcase onto the plane to the United States for graduate school. I emptied my savings to buy her an expensive necklace. Time flies. We each cherished our own paths. After arriving in the US, I changed all my contact information. Except for my parents, no one could reach me. I devoted all my time to studying and interning, getting regular checkups. So, when a problem was detected in my lungs, I didn't hesitate to undergo interventional treatment. I thought it would be like my past life, that no one would know I was sick. But I never expected to run into a familiar face in a foreign hospital. But could someone tell me why I was being dragged down a New York street by Yang Na, chased by a group of reporters? I can't run anymore. Yang Na, are you crazy? I bent over, gasping for air, but the person beside me just kept smiling. Huo Wang, you're the one who wouldn't run. You can't blame me for this. As soon as she finished speaking, I saw the relentless reporters aiming their cameras at us. Joker, is this the Mr. Right you mentioned? Joker, can you confirm your participation in Director Nuan's upcoming film? Can you reveal the name of the film? Joker, what's your relationship with this gentleman? I seem to have stumbled into something extraordinary. Why did the name Joker sound so familiar? I raised my hand to shield my eyes from the flashing lights, but suddenly, I was pulled into an embrace. He carefully covered my eyes, scolding the reporters in fluent English. You're scaring him. This is my private time. I'm not giving any interviews. If you have any questions, ask my agent or lawyer. He led me towards a van, and this heartwarming scene was captured by the cameras. Across the ocean, in the CEO's office on the top floor of the Yaoxing Group headquarters building, a crumpled English newspaper lay on the desk, then carefully smoothed out. The newspaper featured a heartwarming photo, a man being led by a woman, his handsome face gently shielded by her hand, her eyes full of love for him. Huo Wang, is this why you didn't want to see me? In the dark room, only a desperate voice could be heard. I never imagined that Yang Na, in this life, wouldn't take over the Yang Group. Instead, she had become an internationally acclaimed star. Joker. Even I, someone who never paid attention to the entertainment industry, had heard of this name. Sitting in Yang Na's van, all I had to do was look up to see her face plastered on the mall's LED screen. Besides Yang Na and me, there was only the foreign driver in the front. The atmosphere was strange, but Yang Na seemed perfectly at ease. She handed me a bottle of water, sat across from me, and then took out her phone, seemingly busy with something. Well, it's about time. I think the reporters are gone. I have an appointment with a client this afternoon, so I'll be going now. I didn't think Yang Na and I needed to go anywhere together. As my hand reached for the door handle, I heard her slightly cold voice behind me. Li Huo Wang, you're sick. Why didn't you tell me? I turned around. She held up her phone, displaying my medical records. I snatched the phone, not even bothering to look at it, and deleted the file. Yang Na, I'm officially informing you that this is an invasion of privacy. I reserve the right to sue you. So, the story you told me that year was true? So he's going to die? But hasn't he already left him far behind? I froze, not answering her question, just tossing the phone back to her. Yang Na, I don't have time for this. Open the door. I really do have something to do this afternoon. What's the address? I'll take you. Otherwise, you'll disappear again. After graduating from Qingbei, no one in the country knew my whereabouts. Or perhaps those who knew respected my wishes. In any case, neither she nor that person could find me. I checked the time. I really was running late. In my profession, I could never arrive later than the client. East District Cafe. Jia, I've cleared your schedule for your New York trip. Your flight is booked for 11 p.m. tomorrow night. You have a meeting with Imperial investors at 10 a.m. today. Zui Yan entered the CEO's office to find Li Xia still wearing yesterday's clothes. Exhaustion etched on her face. Don't tell me you haven't slept all night. Zui Yan walked closer and saw the crumpled newspaper in the trash can by Li Xia's feet. The images of the man and woman were clear. Are you all right? The man she had been searching for over a year suddenly appeared in the newspaper with another woman. Zui Yan was deeply worried about Li Xia's mental state. Li Xia had been in a daze for over a year, often unsure of what she was living for. She knew there was something wrong with her, but the person who could save her was gone. The necklace was the last gift he gave her. She needed to hold on until he returned. But when would Huowang come back to see her? I sat in the private room of the cafe, the window offering a view of the van that hadn't left. I turned my attention back to the client, a white couple. After all, this was my first case. Even though it was straightforward, I didn't dare to be careless. We talked for the entire afternoon, thoroughly discussing the client's wishes and the required documents. By the time we shook hands and said goodbye, it was already dark. The van was still parked outside. I tried to avoid the van as I left, but the window rolled down, and a slightly threatening voice called out, "Get in, I'll take you home, or I'll send your medical records to Uncle Li right now." I rolled my eyes, not knowing when Yang Na had become so shameless. Annoyed, but feeling threatened, I got into the car. In the van, we stared at each other again. I really hope all celebrities are this free. Or is it because Miss Yang isn't famous enough? I don't know what was funny about that, but the person across from me laughed heartily. Yang Na looked at me lazily, a smile playing on her lips. Yeah, I'm not famous. If I had known being a lawyer required acting skills, I wouldn't have become a celebrity. Gifted? I muttered, glancing at her before turning to look out the window. Honestly, I never thought Yang Na and I could sit together so peacefully. It seemed that when I no longer cared about her, she couldn't affect me at all. Yang Na stared at my profile, the corners of her lips curling up. So, Mr. Lawyer, what's your address? If we stay here any longer, we'll have to spend the night. I'm already at my apartment building. She didn't seem to want to leave. Don't tell me Miss Yang is waiting for me to invite you up for a cup of coffee? Yang Na looked up at the apartment building and chuckled. Coffee at night can cause insomnia. Your follow-up appointment is at 9 a.m. the day after tomorrow. I'll pick you up. Don't refuse. I really wanted to curse, but she just rolled up the window and drove off. Back home, I opened my laptop to continue working on my thesis. Soon, there was a knock on the door. A black delivery guy with a thick accent handed me a package. I didn't remember ordering takeout. Inside the paper bag was a cup of warm milk with a note. Get some rest. Don't drink coffee. There was no signature. I took the milk to the window. Sure enough, the black van had returned. I looked up at the quilt airing on the balcony. Only people from our country had the habit of airing quilts. And this habit had betrayed me. Just like Yang Na said, it was a pity she wasn't a lawyer. Jia, this is Mr. Li's address in New York. But are you sure you don't want to rest? You've been working for almost 40 hours straight. Zui Yan couldn't detect any fatigue on Li Xia's face. She took the note, glanced at it, and put it in her bag. Send me the Imperial collaboration proposal when it's done. The investment for Director Nuan's film will come from my personal account. Li Xia gave her instructions and walked into the VIP passage. She wasn't sure if I was willing to see her, but the longing was almost unbearable. Even a glimpse would be enough. As graduation approached, I was busy day and night. New York's top law firms didn't hire slackers, and SUNY was full of overachievers. I was also handling cases, often working until I couldn't tell day from night. So, when I received the reminder call for my follow-up appointment at the hospital, I was still half asleep. I opened the door to find Yang Na, who had been waiting outside for who knows how long. She naturally took my bag and checked the time. Let's go. We have half an hour. The elevator ride from the 7th floor to the first was short. The building manager, a white man, greeted us cheerfully, mistaking the famous star for my girlfriend. "Hurry up, we're going to be late." I wanted to explain, but Yang Na, with my bag in one hand and my arm linked in the other, hurried me into the car. After the luxury van drove away, a figure emerged from the corner. The woman's deep-set eyes were red-rimmed. "Hi, miss, who are you looking for?" the manager asked politely, but the beautiful Eastern woman just turned and left, seemingly in tears. "Oh, I'm so sorry. Have a nice day." The entire morning, Yang Na stayed with me, waiting for the test results. For some reason, she seemed familiar with the doctors and nurses at this hospital. "So, why were you at the hospital the day before yesterday?" I asked casually since we were just sitting around. Yang Na seemed surprised that I would ask about her, a flicker of delight in her eyes before she composed herself. "Just like you, I came to get my test results. Because of the car accident." I remembered the Yang family rushing her to the hospital that night, but she seemed fine every time I saw her after that. I thought everything was okay. Yang Na shrugged. "Just a routine checkup." "Would a routine checkup make you so familiar with the hospital staff?" I thought, but it was her private matter and I had no right to ask. We fell silent again until the nurse called my name. We got up and went to the doctor's office. "Mr. Lee, congratulations. The interventional treatment has been successful. Remember to come back for a checkup every year. I believe there won't be any major problems." The nurse took my report and led us out of the room, explaining the details. I glanced sideways and noticed that Yang Na seemed even more attentive than I was. Fate could be strange. But for me, the past was the past. I would never look back. When we left the hospital, Yang Na seemed much more relaxed than when she appeared at my door that morning. "Well, you heard the doctor. I have to go to the law firm. See you later." My illness wasn't a big deal. Even if she threatened to tell my parents, I wouldn't care. I turned and walked away, but when I looked back, Yang Na was still standing there, smiling at me. Idiot. Thank you. Regardless, I should thank her. At least this time, I wasn't facing my illness alone. Yang Na watched me leave, smiling faintly. After confirming that my health was okay, I threw myself into preparing for graduation, even appearing in court a few times. The New York law firm was very satisfied with me. Just as I received the formal contract, I got a call from Yu Yang. There was a fire at Li Jia. Fortunately, my parents had listened to my advice and installed fire safety equipment throughout the house. But they weren't young, and my father was hospitalized. The day after my graduation ceremony, I rejected the New York law firm's offer and booked a flight back home. I had anticipated running into that person upon returning to this life, but I never expected to see him the moment I stepped out of Jinshe International Airport. Should I call him Jie or Li Xia now? It was awkward. He seemed to spot me too, walking towards me. When Li Xia took my luggage cart, it felt as natural as if he had done it countless times. "Are you hungry? Let's grab something to eat first." His voice was even gentler than when I left 2 years ago, but his natural ease made me uncomfortable, as if I was the only one still dwelling on the past. I had to admit that I had abruptly left for the United States that year, cutting off all contact with this life, keeping myself so busy that I had to schedule my sleep, largely because of the woman in front of me. But ironically, she seemed unchanged, still as cold and elegant as ever. "No need to trouble yourself. I've already called a car." He left the Li family so easily back then, not acknowledging my parents or me. He didn't tell me anything about his boyfriend or his career. I was like an outsider. We weren't related anymore. Since we were strangers, we should act like it. I took back the luggage cart, not even looking at him, and walked straight towards the exit. A taxi pulled up just as I reached the curb. After I got in, he knocked gently on the window. "Please call me when you get home. Okay? I'll be worried." The driver chuckled. "Your girlfriend is really nice, bro." "We're not. Where did we look like a couple?" I rolled up the window, crossing my arms and gritting my teeth. "Sir, please drive." "Thank you." The window closed too quickly. I didn't even see Li Xia's hand, which was now hidden behind her back, a deep bruise forming on the back of it. But it didn't matter. He was willing to come back, and that was enough. It wasn't until I reached my doorstep that the driver reminded me, "Bro, you pinched your girlfriend's hand when you closed the window. I saw it in the rearview mirror. It looked pretty bad. You should check on her. Maybe take her to the hospital." I froze. Did I hurt him? "Oh, okay. Thank you." As the driver helped me with my luggage, Mom, Auntie, and Uncle Mo came out. Uncle Mo carried my luggage into the villa. Mom started crying the moment she saw me, and even Auntie, who had taken care of Licia and me since we were young, had red eyes. You heartless little rascal. 2 whole years, and you didn't come back to see us once. Didn't you miss Mom and Dad? Mom pretended to be angry, but she just patted my back, her voice full of heartache. You've lost weight. I told you the foreign food wasn't good, but you wouldn't listen. I completely agreed. There really wasn't anything good to eat in the US. Auntie made a table full of your favorite dishes. Kumain, kumain. The family laughed and cried together. I went back to my room to change, but I remembered the driver's words. I had accidentally heard him and he had asked me to call. It wasn't considered me initiating contact. I hesitated, holding my phone, before dialing Licia's unchanged number. Licia was back at the company, her personal phone unusually close at hand. An unknown number called. She couldn't help but smile, pressing the answer button. I'm home. I stammered. Is your hand okay? There was a pause on the other end. Her beautiful eyes darkened as she looked at her fingertips, the bruise now a dark purple. It seems to be swollen. It hurts. Huang. He had never complained about pain before. Panicked. Where are you? Don't move. I'll come to you. We'll go to the hospital immediately. I changed clothes with lightning speed, grabbed my phone, and rushed out. Where are you going? Aren't you eating? Mom called after me. Not eating, not eating. Emergency. Uncle Mo, where are the car keys? After hanging up, a smile touched Licia's lips. Did I see that right? Jie, you smiled. Zuyen dumped a stack of documents on the desk, grinning. Did you pick him up at the airport? He didn't give you the cold shoulder. Licia didn't answer the silly question, just flipped through the documents, signing them one by one. 15 minutes. Go downstairs to pick up Huang. Forget it, I'll go myself. He knew I was still angry about him leaving the Li family without hesitation. But he had to leave. He had to leave to shed the identity of sister and give himself a chance. Doctor, the x-rays are ready. You should take a look. I took Licia straight to the hospital for x-rays. As soon as the films were developed, I dragged her to the doctor's office. The doctor examined the x-rays carefully. It doesn't seem to be anything serious. Why is this young man so worried? He's fine. Just a minor fracture. It'll heal with rest. But he said it hurts a lot. Doctor, is there anything for the pain? The doctor looked up at the beautiful woman standing behind the young man. She looked familiar. Wasn't she the CEO of Yaoxing Group, a major shareholder of the hospital? Did she need to make an appointment? Yaoxing had its own hospitals. The doctor cleared his throat, his expression shifting. Is there something else wrong with the x-ray? I leaned forward anxiously. After a moment of hesitation, the doctor said, I'll prescribe some ointment. Remember to apply it twice a day and massage it. Come back for a checkup when the swelling goes down. Okay. I nodded seriously, as if I had been given an important mission. The woman behind me smiled indulgently. The doctor typed away at his computer, his brow furrowing. It seemed Licia's finger was seriously injured. Miss, please take your ID and this number to the payment counter. I took the number slip but pushed Licia onto the sofa in the doctor's office. Wait for me here. Don't disturb the doctor. I'll be right back. I left like a gust of wind, leaving the sweating doctor and Licia staring at each other. The CEO nodded politely at him. Thank you for your trouble. Polite but intimidating. Who is that young man? He can make the CEO so obedient. Here's the ointment. It says twice a day. I rummaged through the plastic bag, then took out a pen and paper, carefully writing instructions and sticking them to the ointment box. Licia drove, her peripheral vision filled with me. The car kept going. I looked up and realized this wasn't the way to her company. Jie, where are you taking me? The word Jie slipped out habitually. By the time I realized I shouldn't call her that anymore, it was too late. Sorry. Force of habit. I looked annoyed. Licia's eyes dimmed. It's okay. Perhaps subconsciously, I never intended to let go. Are you going home, Huang? That year, when I took her from the hospital, didn't she insist on going to her apartment? We're not related anymore. At most, we're friends who grew up together. It wouldn't be appropriate to barge into your home like this. I refused flatly, my excuse seemingly reasonable. But her grip on the steering wheel tightened. Okay. Her voice softened. I suddenly realized I might have been too forward. I had just returned to the country. I didn't want to get involved with her again. My phone rang. I looked at the unfamiliar number, puzzled, but answered anyway. Yang Na's angry voice filled the car. Li Huang, you're too much. Why didn't you tell me you were back? Why should I tell her? And how did she get my number? The atmosphere in the car was eerily silent. Afraid that Yang Na would reveal my illness, I quickly covered the receiver and whispered, "Shut up. I'll call you when I get home." I hung up, smiling awkwardly at Li Xia. "Maybe you could drop me off somewhere convenient. Aren't you in a hurry to go home?" "Xia, I don't want to trouble you with driving me all the way to your company." I didn't know if she was going in the same direction, and it felt wrong to ask her to drive me to her company. But this time, Li Xia didn't answer, her face darkening, making me a little scared. I shouldn't have been so presumptuous. Li Xia parked the car in front of her company and got out, heading straight for the elevator. I didn't even have time to say goodbye. Had I offended her somehow? My phone rang again. It was the same unlisted number. Sighing, I answered the call as I got into my car. "Are you home yet?" The woman's voice was much calmer now. "Almost. I'm driving." "Dear Miss Yang, it's illegal to use your phone while driving." The person on the other end chuckled. "Truly a lawyer. All right, hang up. Call me when you get home." The line went dead, leaving me confused. What was our relationship now? After the black car drove away, the woman who had been standing by the elevator finally leaned against the wall, as if she could no longer stand. She thought she could be a little selfish. It was only a short distance, but he was clearly angry, and I didn't make any move to follow. Perhaps, no matter how hard she tried, in my eyes and heart, the most important person was still him. Yang Na. I'm so jealous of him. Zuyen called Li Xia to confirm the investment for director Nuan's film, but he was summoned to the top floor office. "Didn't Huang pick you up happily? Why are you back here, so devoted to work?" "Don't worry, Yaoxing can still make money without you for a while." He couldn't understand. She was clearly crazy about him, but she couldn't say anything. How could anyone have a relationship based on guesswork? Li Xia took the contract and signed it with a flourish, then tossed the expensive pen onto the desk. Even in this state, she still exuded an air of elegance, a suppressed coldness. Nuan's film is being shot in the US. Does Joker know about this? The phone call in the car was from a domestic number, so Yang Na was back in the country. Of course, the contract with Joker requires her to join the production 3 months in advance. Returning at this time constitutes a breach of contract. "Wait, I'll call her agent." Slender fingers pressed against her eyes. Her exhausted voice was faint. "No need. Even if she breaches the contract, it's only a compensation of 300 million. The Yang family won't bat an eye at that amount. If she wants to come back, let her." Bad news. Zuyen put down his phone, looking at Li Xia's troubled expression. Li Huang rejected the New York offer. He's definitely planning to stay in Jingshi. Should we contact some of the top law firms? Or arrange something at Jin Yao's new firm? At least it'll give you an advantage. After all, the New York law firm had benefited from the Yang family's influence. Miss Yang probably had the same idea. He won't like that. If Huang could be won over so easily, I would have given him Yaoxing, let alone anything else. He doesn't want to rely on anyone. Even if the New York law firm had received favors from the Yang family, for a firm of that caliber, favors alone wouldn't guarantee a position for an unqualified lawyer. His Huang was talented enough, captivating enough to make people fall for him again and again. Speak of the devil. Rongyu Chongqing's internal announcement includes your Mr. Li on their recruitment list. Zuyen showed Li Xia the announcement on his phone. Miss Yang is quick, isn't she? Not giving anyone a chance. Rongyu Chongqing had a long-term strategic partnership with Yaoxing. Their top partner, Xiao Rongyu, was practically Li Xia's counterpart. Powerful background, genius mind, and an aloof, decisive demeanor. Have the marketing department contact Meng Hao's agency immediately. Tell Nuan that if he uses Meng Hao, I'll double the investment. She was finally getting it. All right, I'll do it right away. Yang Na, are you bored? My car had just turned into the residential area when I saw the famous star leaning against a car, wearing sunglasses and a mask. Then my phone rang. My tone was unfriendly, but the person on the other end wasn't angry. She waved at me. Hungry? Let's go grab a bite. By the way, your father is at Yang's hospital. I visited him after I got off the plane. Don't worry. Was this another threat? You're really free. I thought she would just take me to a nearby restaurant. But the car kept going, eventually pulling into the parking lot of a high-end residential area. I was about to get out when the door opened. Yang Na expertly took my things, removed her mask, and smiled at me. This lady will condescend to let you try my cooking. Let's go. This is my place. I was stunned when we stopped in front of her door. "Mr. Lawyer, would you mind opening the door? My hands are full." I looked down. It was indeed her place. "This is your home, not mine. How would I know your passcode?" "Your birthday." Time seemed to freeze. I retracted my hand, frowning, and turned to leave. "Very funny." The sound of the lock clicking open came from behind me. Yang Na chuckled. "It wasn't funny at all. I thought I had made myself clear years ago. Hurry up, hurry up. This lady is starving. Next time we have a board meeting, I'll definitely have them change the airline food. It's disgusting." Footsteps stopped behind me. My sleeve was gently tugged. "Okay, I won't do it again." This childish apology wasn't the Yang Na I knew. Since our reunion in New York, I had felt like she was a different person. A luxurious penthouse in a prime location with high-end furnishings. Except for the different residential area, it was almost identical to our marital home in my past life. It seemed Miss Yang's taste hadn't changed at all. The TV remote is on the table. There's sparkling water in the fridge. "Help yourself." She carried the bags into the kitchen. The scene felt surreal. I used to wait for her at home like this, eating the dishes Auntie cooked. She didn't like Auntie's cooking, so I learned to make her favorite dishes. The fridge was stocked with her favorite drinks, just in case she wanted some. "Joker, you've been photographed. Do you need to suppress the photos?" Midway through cooking, Yang Na received a call and went into the study. Her agency was just one of the many subsidiaries of the Yang Group, so unlike other artists, she mostly made her own decisions. Now, the smile was gone from her face, replaced by a composed expression. "No, I want everyone to know. So, he's the man you mentioned? Roy, you've finally met him." "Sorry." The agent hung up with a teasing tone. When Yang Na came out of the study, I was already asleep on the sofa. The lights were dimmed. She gently draped a blanket over me and went back to the kitchen. If I had woken up then, I would have been surprised. Yang Na was making all my favorite dishes. Meanwhile, several trending keywords on Weibo were followed by Joker, the award-winning actress. Hashtag Joker secret date, hashtag Jincher late night meeting, hashtag mystery boyfriend. But even though Joker's fans were buzzing all night, they couldn't find any information about the man. OMG. She's so devoted. I love her even more. Is this a pure love novel come to life? She said in an interview that she's liked a boy for many years. The comments under Yang Na's latest Weibo post were exploding. But some rational fans noticed something amiss. Shouldn't she be on set at this time? Why is she in the country? Yang Na turned off her phone and tossed it aside, placing the steaming dishes on the table. She didn't wake me, just sat quietly on the other end of the sofa, staring at my sleeping face. "I'm sorry. Forgive my selfishness. I don't have much time left. Just indulge me. Okay?" In the dim room, the woman whispered, tears welling up in her eyes. "Jie. Cry, scream, do whatever you want. Please don't keep it all bottled up inside. I'm even more worried when you're like this." As soon as the news about Miss Yang broke, Zui Yan rushed to Li Xia's house. Even though the man's face was blurred in the photos and videos, even he could recognize Li Huowang. The large villa was dark, not a single light on. Li Xia sat alone on the sofa, crying silently. Could crying and screaming make him stop liking someone else? "I've liked Yang Na since I was young. Li Xia is just my sister. A man and a woman alone late at night." He had told her he was going home. "Jie, don't be like this. Why don't you call Li Huowang? Maybe there's a misunderstanding. Miss Yang wasn't even around when you were at Qingbei. Besides, the Yang family has been looking for Li Huowang these past 2 years. It means he doesn't like her anymore. It's not a misunderstanding." Her voice was so soft that Zui Yan couldn't hear her. "I said it's not a misunderstanding. When I went to New York to find him, I overheard someone say they were a couple, and he didn't deny it." She felt like she was going crazy, but what could she do? Beg him? Tell him about her twisted love? Then be treated like a monster? Be shunned and avoided like when she was a child? Li Xia had never been confident in front of me. She was afraid, even terrified. One wrong step would be irreversible. Zui Yan was stunned. Then should I have the PR team take down the trending topics? Or what about Nuan? Did he sign Meng Hao? This had been decided earlier that day. Zui Yan quickly contacted the marketing department to confirm. Meng Hao agreed. He'll send the contract back tomorrow morning. We don't need him. There are posts mentioning Joker's breach of contract. We need to maximize the pressure so she terminates the contract herself. Give this case to Rongyu Chongqing. Jie, are you pitting Li Huowang against Miss Yang in court? The woman on the sofa didn't answer, but her eyes were stormy. I slept until the next morning. Yang Na appeared with breakfast. I was still half asleep when I called out, "Morning, wife." Luckily, my voice was hoarse. By the time I realized what I had said, Yang Na didn't seem to have heard. She smiled, handing me a new toothbrush and towel. I had someone send over a change of clothes. "Do you want to wash up first or eat breakfast?" I snapped awake, dropping the blanket I was still clutching. "No need to trouble yourself. I have to go to the law firm today. Bye." What a mess. Before returning to the country, I had sent my resume to several domestic law firms. Rongyu Chongqing was the first to respond. I completed the final online interview at the New York airport. In my past life, I lived for Yang Na. In this life, at first, I just wanted to fulfill my responsibilities in my limited time. Now, I lived for myself, to achieve for myself, and then to fulfill myself. Li Huawang, you have to work hard. The legal world is very realistic. It's all about seniority, your alma mater, your internship experience, and your achievements. Those are just the basic requirements to enter a top firm like Rongyu Chongqing. Next comes your personal ability. This ability encompassed many things, not just professional skills, but also interpersonal skills. I didn't intend to rely on anyone. Starting as a legal assistant was fine. My starting point was already high. Having just entered the top tier of the domestic legal field, the person leading my team was the legendary Xiao Rongyu. I initially thought a partner like him wouldn't have to do any work himself. It seemed even bosses were this dedicated. As a newbie, I had to keep up. On my first day, I worked overtime on a legal opinion. "Seriously, Rongyu, who is this Li Huawang?" Since yesterday's internal announcement, the legal departments of Yang Group and Yaoxing Group have sent over 5-year cooperation proposals. What kind of money magnet is he? Nuo Wei sat in Xiao Rongyu's office, looking at the still-lit workstation outside, completely baffled. Xiao Rongyu remained focused on his computer screen, his expression unchanging. "If you have time for gossip, you might as well review the Shangqing asset restructuring case again. The hearing is tomorrow." He didn't know why the Yang family was so eager, but he knew that this Mr. Li, who had concealed his identity during the law firm interview, was the man someone had been pining for years. But since he was at Rongyu Chongqing, he wouldn't give him special treatment. The light at the workstation went out. Xiao Rongyu's inbox showed a new message. "Knock, knock." Roy opened the door. The person standing outside was the one they had just been gossiping about. I nodded politely at Roy before turning to Xiao Rongyu. "Lawyer Xiao, I've sent the Rongan legal opinion to your inbox. Do you need me to drive you to Rongan headquarters tomorrow morning?" Xiao Rongyu opened his inbox. The legal opinion was in both Chinese and English. He scanned it briefly. The clauses and logic were clear. It was due tomorrow, but I had finished it overnight. "Not bad for your first day. It seems you're familiar with the latest domestic penalties. Then you can leave work. I'll send you the address." "Okay." A conversation between two emotionless work machines. Nuo Wei pouted. "This Mr. Li is a natural lawyer." As I left, Roy closed the door and turned to see Xiao Rongyu staring at him intently. All right. I'll go review the legal provisions now." As soon as Roy left, Xiao Rongyu's phone rang. He looked at the name and chuckled, answering the call. "Your little guy just left, and your call comes right after. Are you afraid I'll eat him?" It was the season of catkins and willow shear, filling the air like snow in late spring. I didn't know how much resentment there was, but my rhinitis was acting up again. Fortunately, my new apartment was close to the law firm and Yangshi Hospital. I could visit my father after work. The Burns unit was crowded tonight. There must have been a fire in a nearby residential area. I arrived just as the ambulance left. After some navigating, I finally reached my father's ward. His injuries weren't serious, just a skin graft on his calf. The doctor wanted him to stay for observation for a few days. I had brought him lunch, and now I was back again in the evening. "Is there anything wrong? Why are you here so late?" I smiled helplessly. Other fathers can't wait to see their sons every day. You, on the other hand, you're delaying my... I took out the chicken soup Mom had sent from the insulated container and placed it on his bedside table. "Drink it. I'll leave after you finish. I'm just worried you're working too hard. You're as stubborn as your mother. I'm a grown man, and she insisted on a skin graft for me. What good are looks at my age?" He grumbled, but he quickly finished the soup. I was worried he would choke. "All right, you should go back. Is there a nurse here?" Whether it was tacit understanding or something else, my parents never mentioned Li Xia in front of me. So, I didn't know what was happening with the company. Li Jia wasn't a big company, but it was my parents' life's work. I felt guilty for taking another job without consulting them. About the company. Don't worry about the company. Just do what you want. We can always hire professional managers. Our son is the most important. I shrugged. Well, the fire is over. We can talk about it when mom and dad are ready. I'm not leaving Jingshi. I took the empty container, gave a few more instructions, and left the ward. Passing the nurse's station, I overheard a doctor shout, "Contact the blood bank. We need AB-Rh-negative blood plasma. Miss Yang in the VIP room is unstable." The place was in chaos. A nurse almost bumped into me as she rushed out. "Excuse me." The young nurse looked panicked. I grabbed her arm. "Take my blood. I'm AB-Rh negative." I didn't know how much blood a person could donate at once, but they kept drawing until I felt dizzy and collapsed as soon as I left the treatment room. When I woke up, the first thing I felt was a painful grip on my hand. "Li Huawang, are you trying to kill yourself?" I was yelled at before I was even fully conscious. When I finally came to, I saw the person sitting by my bed. The usually elegant and composed woman had red eyes. Was this still the Li Xia I knew? After a moment of restraint, she softened her tone. "Huawang, it's good to save people, but please think about yourself. Think about me." When she found me unconscious in the middle of the night as a child, she had repeatedly told herself never to let me get hurt again. Back then, the hospital couldn't find my blood type. She stayed by my side day and night, finally managing to get blood plasma from the blood bank, saving my life. She had almost gone crazy when she received the call from my father. Was Yang Na that important? Jie, why are you crying? I gently wiped away the tears from the corners of her eyes. I didn't know I was so important to her. Li Xia carefully held my hand in hers, lowering her head and sighing silently. She admitted it. As long as her Huawang was healthy and happy, she didn't care about her identity. The ward door opened, and Zuyen walked in. Jie Yang Huilan, the chairperson of Yang Group, wants to thank Mr. Li in person. Tell her to get lost. Hearing such harsh words from Li Xia, I suddenly found her awkwardness endearing, but I still patted her hand reassuringly. "I'm fine. Let her in." After all, even though Yaoxing didn't have to answer to anyone now, Yang Group was an established corporation with undeniable influence. I had done a good deed, and the Yang family should be grateful. Why create animosity between two large corporations? 6 years later, Yang Huilan, elegant and dignified, appeared before me again. Wrinkles etched around her eyes. The bedside table was piled high with flowers and fruits. She sat beside my bed, no longer the imposing figure of authority, but a more approachable woman. "Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Li." Tears streamed down her face. I had never seen Yang Huilan so vulnerable. Did something happen to Yang Na? That was the only possible explanation for such a powerful woman to be so fragile. I had been Yang Na's husband. I knew how much this woman loved her daughter. After I married Yang Na, Yang Huilan often criticized me. But now I finally understood. Her criticism stemmed from her belief that a man shouldn't live like I did. She got me a job, hoping I would take over the Yang family business. But back then, I only had eyes for her daughter, losing myself completely. Yang Huilan's feelings towards me were more of disappointment than anything else. The woman wept silently, shaking her head, saying nothing. It seemed Yang Na wasn't injured in last night's fire. The news reports listed the names of the fire victims sent to Yangshi Hospital, and Yang Na wasn't among them. Then why was she in the hospital? I had just left her place this morning. Auntie knows Xiaona likes you, and she knows she's not fortunate enough to be with you, Mr. Li. But please, as a favor to Auntie, forgive her willfulness and be kind to her. Okay. Yang Huilan left me with these puzzling words. What happened to Yang Na? The ward door opened and closed again. Li Xia walked in. I suddenly wanted to tease her. What would this elegant and aloof woman be like without her usual composure? "I've already asked for leave for you from the law firm. Rest for a day." The first thing she did after leaving the ward was to initiate the establishment of a rare blood type database. She didn't want to go through this a third time. "Xia Jie." I stared at her with my charming eyes. Li Xia turned her head slightly, avoiding my gaze, but still responded softly. "Xia Jie." I repeated, teasing her. Li Xia knew what I was doing, but still responded out of habit. "Are you blushing?" She fled the room. I felt like I had discovered a new continent, a smile spreading across my face. Zuyen, seeing his CO emerge from the ward with flushed ears and neck, was stunned. "What happened? Why do you look like a cooked lobster? Didn't you say there was progress between you two?" It definitely wasn't you who initiated it. Did Li Huawang kiss you? Don't be ridiculous. As I was working on my laptop, Li Xia returned, her usual composure restored. I thought Xia Jie had abandoned me. She sighed. Let's go. Say goodbye to your father. You're coming to my place. It'll be easier to take care of you. What about the apartment I just rented? Cancel it. I'm not comfortable with you living alone. We lived under the same roof before because we were family. But now that she had returned to the Zhou family, wouldn't it be inappropriate for a man and a woman to live together? My expression was hesitant. My ID hasn't been changed. You've seen it. So, Huawang, I can still be your sister. She left the choice entirely to me. As long as she could stay by my side, she didn't care about anything else. I didn't quite understand, but it felt like something had shifted between us. The new house was a single-family villa within the first ring road. I was taken back to Li Xia's home. The house, like its owner, was cold and impersonal, decorated like a showroom. It was so clean and organized that I suspected she had OCD. Does your boyfriend know I'm coming? I asked before stepping inside. Felt strange. Li Xia bent down to get my slippers, turning to look at me with a puzzled expression. When did I get a boyfriend? She hadn't been involved in any scandals, romantic or otherwise, in all these years. She handed me the slippers. I don't like being disturbed. There's no one else here. If you need anything, you can ask me or the housekeeper. Weren't you dating my roommate in college? Back then, I was worried I was overthinking things, so I asked Yui when he returned to the dorm. Yui had told me they were dating. We broke up. Had I said something I shouldn't have? Li Xia frowned. Only today did she finally understand why I had suddenly become so distant towards her. It seemed she needed to have a good talk with Yui. Li Huawang, why did you avoid me during our sophomore year? I blinked, tilting my head slightly. I thought you had a boyfriend. We're not blood-related after all. I was afraid it would affect you. My voice was barely a whisper. I realized I had been lied to. So, you made that decision without even asking me? Li Xia sounded slightly aggrieved. You never told me anything. Did you ever reply to my messages immediately? She sighed. She had been so conflicted back then. How could she have initiated contact? Even now, she had to be careful, afraid that I would disappear again. The conversation reached a standstill. I'll go make dinner. She couldn't hold my gaze any longer and retreated like a fugitive. Someone who was used to being busy couldn't stand being idle. In the afternoon, I pestered Li Xia until she let me go back to work. While I was at my workstation, I didn't know that my boss's office was about to erupt into World War III. Why are you glaring at me? I approved his leave request. He's the one who insisted on coming back. Xiao Rongyu was speechless. Yaoxing's CEO was having a staring contest with him in his office. It was childish. He couldn't help it. In front of Li Xia, even he felt like the more lively one. Li Xia ignored him, her cold, aloof face showing her disapproval. Yaoxing's subsidiary is suing Joker. 50% of the penalty goes to you. Huawang will be your assistant. As far as Xiao Rongyu knew, Joker's contract was drafted by their law firm. 50% of the penalty was 150 million. Such a hefty legal fee just to give his little guy some experience? He knew this person was up to something. Xiao Rongyu looked at Li Xia shrewdly. Ms. Li, although according to legal ethics, lawyers cannot meet with the opposing party during the trial, there's an exception with court approval. You can meet then. Why go through such lengths just to deal with a love rival? Xiao Rongyu smiled, finally finding her weakness after all these years. Li Xia stood up and straightened her clothes, placing her hand on the doorknob. You don't have to worry about the rest. It's time for me to take Huawang home. Hey, pay the deposit first. I was still working on the complaint when I heard a commotion from my boss's office. I looked up. Why hadn't Jie left yet? Li Xia emerged from Xiao Rongyu's office, her face grim. She was so striking that even after work hours, the few remaining people in the common area looked at her. She walked to my workstation, saved my files without a word, closed my laptop, and pulled me up. We'll finish this at home. It's time to go. Her expression had been off since we left the hospital earlier. I didn't dare to argue, just said goodbye to my colleagues and followed her. Did I see that right? What's the relationship between the new guy, Li, and Yaoxing's CEO? Idiot, they both have the same last name. What do you think? I saw the Weibo news 48 hours after the Joker incident blew up, along with the trending topic about the breach of contract, and the photos and videos of me sleeping at her place that night. I didn't know the Yang family's PR was this bad, letting their stars' scandals run rampant. Li Xia was cooking in the kitchen. I had no appetite, so I took my phone and went to the garden. Yang Na's phone went straight to voicemail. I looked at my phone helplessly. I didn't have her WeChat or any other contact information. I couldn't reach her. What was going on? Ho Wang. My anxious pacing in the garden caught Li Xia's attention. Only something related to that person could make me look like this. Dinner's ready. Jie, I have to go out. You eat first. Don't wait for me. Something must have happened to Yang Na. I had a bad feeling when Yang Huilan said those words. Now I couldn't even reach her. No matter what, I had loved Yang Na sincerely in my past life, and it was Yang Na who discovered my illness in this life. I went back to my room to change. Downstairs, Li Xia sat alone at the dining table. Had she been living alone in this big house since she left the Li family? I wanted to say something, but if something had really happened to Yang Na, it was her private matter, and it wouldn't be appropriate for too many people to know. Sighing, I took my car keys and left. At Yangshi Hospital, I explained my purpose at the nurse's station, but they looked at me like I was a gossip reporter and claimed they didn't know anything. Just as I was about to give up, I saw a familiar figure. Lu Xing. We sat facing each other in the hospital garden. So, Mr. Li, what brings you here to see Na Jie? Her tone was hostile. In their eyes, I was probably the heartless man who abandoned Yang Na and ruined her life. I wasn't affected by her sarcasm. I just couldn't reach Yang Na. I wanted to ask if the other party involved in the trending topic could take it down. Ha! She scoffed. I sighed. Well, if it's inconvenient, I'll be going then. As I turned to leave, she called out, Li Huawang, have you really let go of Yang Na? During our youth, wherever Yang Na was, I was there too. I was her shadow, at her beck and call, my world revolving around her. My youthful love was passionate and unrestrained. I wanted to announce to the world that Yang Na was Li Huawang's. No one knew what happened. In our senior year, everything changed. We became strangers. But apart from us, our friends saw everything clearly. The first half of our senior year was the most obedient time for the usually rebellious Miss Yang. Yang Na had been waiting for me, but what she got was a suicide attempt. She went to the US after the surgery, but her lungs became repeatedly infected. She was recently diagnosed with terminal lung cancer. Lu Xing thought Yang Na was crazy, because when she received the diagnosis, she smiled brighter than anyone else. The Yang family paid everyone for their silence, forbidding them from mentioning Yang Na's illness to me. But was this really the end? I stopped, turning to look at Lu Xing. I'm sorry. I didn't know your hostility towards me came from Yang Na. But I still want to ask, if I hadn't changed in our senior year, what do you think Li Huawang would be like today? I was only 24, but I was already a composed and calm man, the image of an urban elite. A top student from Qingbei Law School, a renowned scholar in SUNY's law department. My resume, filled with accolades, could fill an entire page. I had just returned to China and joined a top law firm, working under the legendary Xiao Rongyu. If I had still been obsessed with Yang Na, I would never have become who I was today. I didn't wait for Lu Xing's answer, just nodded politely and left. The timid boy who used to follow Yang Na around was long gone. As soon as I left the hospital, I received a call from my boss. Lawyer Xiao, is there a problem with the Rongin complaint? I can revise it now. Xiao Rongyu was starting to admire Li Xia. What kind of man had she fallen for? He was all about work, even more dedicated than him. The complaint is fine, but you should check on your person. Night bar. I'll send you the location. Pick her up. Xiao Rongyu hung up and returned to the private room. In the dimly lit room, the woman was drinking $10,000 bottles of wine like water. Didn't she know she had a serious stomach problem? Ms. Li, stop drinking. You'll end up in the ER again, and Zichen will scold me again. They were birds of a feather. Xiao Rongyu had an ex-husband he couldn't win back, Li Zichen, and Li Xia had a brother she didn't dare to pursue, Li Huawang. They were both heartbroken souls. Li Xia didn't even look at him, just emptied another glass. When I arrived at the bar, I was almost blinded by the empty bottles. Was she trying to get alcohol poisoning? Here she is. I'm leaving. I have a meeting with Rongin's CEO tomorrow at noon. Pick me up at 11 a.m. at Xinghe residential area. No need to come to the law firm. Xiao Rongyu gave me an encouraging look, grabbed his coat, and left. I frowned, staring at Li Xia. If it weren't for the dazed look in her eyes, I wouldn't have known she was drunk. I sat beside her, waving my hand in front of her face. Jie, do you recognize me? Huawang, can you still walk? Let's go home. Okay? I asked softly, like coaxing a child. She looked up, her expression serious. No going home. Huawang isn't home. I felt a pang in my chest. I helped her up, one arm around her waist, the other holding her bag. Let's go. I'll take you home. She leaned against me, surprisingly light. I had always been thin and frail, but she was even more so. I carefully helped her into the car, fastening her seatbelt. The night breeze was cool, carrying the scent of Lishia's perfume, a familiar fragrance that calmed my nerves. I had always liked her scent, clean and refreshing, like the mountain air after the rain. The car pulled up in front of the villa. I helped her out of the car and into the house. She was surprisingly cooperative, letting me lead her to the sofa. Water, she mumbled. I poured her a glass of warm water, helping her sit up. She took the glass, her fingers brushing against mine, sending a shiver down my spine. She drank slowly, her eyes fixed on me, a strange intensity in her gaze. Huowang. Don't leave. Her voice was soft, almost a plea. I looked at her, my heart aching. I gently tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. I won't leave. She closed her eyes, a faint smile playing on her lips. I watched her, my mind a whirlwind of emotions. I carefully lifted her into my arms and carried her upstairs to her room. Her bedroom was simple and elegant, with a large window overlooking the city lights. I gently laid her on the bed, pulling the covers over her. She stirred, her hand reaching out to grab mine. Stay! I sat beside her, holding her hand. The city lights twinkled outside the window, casting a warm glow on her face. I watched her sleep, my heart filled with a strange sense of peace. I didn't know how long I sat there, just holding her hand, until I finally drifted off to sleep myself. The next morning, I woke up to the smell of breakfast. Lixia was already downstairs, dressed in her usual business attire, looking as if nothing had happened last night. Morning, I said, still feeling a little awkward. Morning, breakfast is ready. She seemed a little distant, her usual warmth replaced by a cool politeness. We ate breakfast in silence. After breakfast, she drove me to Xinghe residential area. Call me when you get to the law firm, she said as I got out of the car. Okay. I watched her drive away, a strange sense of loss washing over me. At the law firm, Xiao Rongyu handed me a stack of documents. Here's the case file. Familiarize yourself with it. The hearing is this afternoon. Okay. The case was a contract dispute between Yaoxing's subsidiary and Joker. As I read through the file, I realized that Joker was in breach of contract. The evidence was overwhelming. It was an open and shut case. In the courtroom, I saw Yang Na. She looked pale and tired, her eyes filled with a mixture of defiance and despair. Our eyes met, and for a moment, I saw a flicker of the girl I used to love. But it was gone as quickly as it appeared, replaced by a cold indifference. During the hearing, I presented the evidence calmly and professionally, dismantling Joker's defense point by point. Yang Na's lawyer tried to argue, but his arguments were weak and unconvincing. In the end, the judge ruled in favor of Yaoxing's subsidiary. Joker was ordered to pay a hefty sum in damages. As I left the courtroom, I saw Yang Na standing alone in the hallway, her head bowed. I wanted to go to her, to say something, but I stopped myself. There was nothing left to say. I walked away, leaving her standing there alone. That night, I received a call from Lixia. Are you okay? She asked, her voice filled with concern. I'm fine, I said, but my voice trembled. Come home, she said softly. I hung up the phone and drove home. Lixia was waiting for me at the door. She pulled me into her arms, holding me tightly. I buried my face in her shoulder, letting the tears flow freely. It's okay, she whispered, stroking my hair. I'm here. We stood there for a long time, just holding each other, until the tears finally stopped. Later that night, as we lay in bed, Lixia turned to me, her eyes filled with a love I had never seen before. Huowang, she whispered. I love you. I looked at her, my heart overflowing with emotion. I love you too, Jie. We kissed, a long, slow kiss that sealed our love for eternity.